superior. Nasty.
Okay. Take your seats. Settle down. Welcome to the Road to Concord 101. This class is about all things connected to the path of history leading from Mount Sinai to Lexington Green and the individual liberty and freedom of man. If you're in the wrong place, feel free to get up and go see the registrar's office about dropping this class, preferably before you meet the professor. In the event you do not already know this, your professor is Joe Bakanovic, and he has a bit of a reputation on campus. He is most definitely an acquired taste, but if you can learn to tolerate him, he will make you better at defending your position, whatever it may be. I'm T.A. Charlie. I'm here to help the professor, but more importantly, you. We encourage you to take notes, and if you have questions, feel free to call. If you'd like the number, please email us. You can also post your questions in the comments, and we'll get the professor's attention. Part of my job is to let you know a little bit about your professor. As I said earlier, the professor has that bit of a reputation on campus. Not all of it is good. Let me help explain a little with a story about how I came to be the professor's TA. I was invited to attend one of his classes. My first impression of the professor was that he was an egotistical, narcissistic know-it-all. My intent after only a few minutes of class was never to attend another class with this professor. But after class, Professor Joe came up to me and thanked me for my class participation and told me that my perspective was valuable, and he asked me to keep coming to class. This actually took me back a little. To me, he seemed inconsistent. What was I to do? I decided to continue coming to his classes. As I did, I actually started doing what he does encourage students to do. Check behind him and see if what he is teaching is actually correct. I have done this over and over again, and generally speaking, I found what he teaches to be backed by sound, valid, and rational arguments from reputable sources. When I have challenged him and provided a sound, valid, and rational argument in opposition to his current position, he immediately changed his position and thanked me for correcting him. Why do I tell you all this? Professor Joe is a little rough around the edges, especially in the way he delivers his content. But if you stick with him and listen to what he teaches and then go and check his sources, you will likely find, as I did, he will help you better understand the world around you and help you to think better and hopefully to live better. At least that is our hope. One last note. This class builds on itself. Therefore, it is important to attend class regularly. We will not always have time to go over previously covered material. If you are new, we suggest you watch our older classes. We've created playlists to help you with those things we feel are of special importance. Now, let's get started.
Duck season. Duck season.
Wabbit season!
Duck season.
Wabbit season!
I just wanted to see if he'd play. Good morning. It's Tuesday, November 4th, 2025. And it is, well, between now and November 10th, it's all things Marine Corps. Coming up on my second birthday here. Welcome to the Road to Concord. Yes, I am Joe Bakanovic, the acquired taste around here. Professor's a joke, acquired taste not so much. That's actually true. Mr. Quest says he'll be hunting deer. You have to stay out of my yard, or BB will probably kill you, Mr. Quest, because the deer come to my front yard every afternoon, roughly 4 to 5 o'clock. Bucks and does. Probably because she feeds them. Also because there's persimmon trees out there dropping persimmons, and the deers like them things. I also have fox, rabbit, squirrel, dove. I can eat off my front yard. I'm set for the apocalypse. Anyhow, ready to go. Today, we're going to continue with a little bit of practical application, playing around with the theory of morality, universal morality, that we extrapolated the last, was it 5 shows? You can probably find that in a folder on the Road to Concord, and maybe even, I don't know if Charlie did it, but there might be one on YouTube.
Playlists on Rumble and YouTube, yes.
Okay, thank you, sir. But if you're interested, if you missed that, you can go back there. But I'm just going to take what we've done with universal morality based in a creator, and I'm going to go through a few things for you. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to look and see how these ideas can actually help us a great deal to wrestle with things. So I'm throwing this up on the chalkboard here, so to speak. You have ethics on the left. That's man-made ideas of right and wrong without a creator. Then you have morality on the right. That's a universal morality based in natural law, natural rights, with resting on a creator. We're not going to argue religion here at the moment. But in the middle, necessary. This is logical necessity. If I have something like, is a creator necessary under our definition of ethics? No. Matter of fact, one of the things that makes it ethics is the fact that you're not appealing to the creator, a supreme lawgiver. You're only appealing to yourself and your own reason. That's why I differentiate between ethics and morality. But in order for you to have universal morality, it will be necessary that you have a lawgiver who is above and beyond the control of humanity, hence the creator. So it would be logically necessary to have a creator under my idea of universal morality, but it is not logically necessary to have a creator under the system of ethics. So does man have free will? Under a system of ethics without a creator, it is not necessary that you have free will. What? Yeah, all of us do. Are you aware of the propensity in our world today for people to say, well, they're a product of their environment, or this is because of the way they were raised, or they were molested? It's the idea that how you react to things is predetermined by your experiences in life, or your genetics, or your economic situation. Well, that's not free will, folks. That's saying that you are, contrary to your will, you are reacting simply as an animal. So free will is not a necessary part of ethics, as we've defined ethics. But free will is necessary to morality, as we've defined morality. And if you remember, you cannot hold somebody accountable for something if they have no control over it. Therefore, if I stole because I'm poor and people exploited me, you'll have folks in the world today that say, well, we're going to let them off because they're deprived or underprivileged or whatever. And this is happening in our society today. This does happen in our legal system. That's where that thinking comes from, ethics. But according to morality, we have to be held individually accountable for everything we do because we have free will. It's got nothing to do with necessarily how you were born or what the hand was dealt to you. You're supposed to deal with that hand that you've been dealt accordingly. So yes, morality, free will is a necessary part of morality. So we come to individual rights, the rights, things that you can lay just claim to as yours and yours alone. Under ethics, this is not a necessary part of the idea of ethics. It's not necessary that you and I have rights. In fact, in a lot of cultures, a lot of societies, the individual does not have rights. Only the sovereign, whoever's in charge. But under our system of morality, rights is a necessary part of that system, that concept that we constructed. The right to your free will. And if you have free will, it's your right to, you have a right to everything necessary to exercise it. Then we come to liberty. Do you have liberty? Well, liberty is the exercising of your free will. Well, if you do not necessarily have free will and do not necessarily have rights as a result, you do not necessarily have liberty. So under ethics, that is not a necessary part of that system. But if you have morality, universal morality, the way we've extrapolated it, then you have a claim to your free will, which is a right. And if you have the right to it, you have the right to use it, which is liberty. Now, there are constraints on that liberty, but we'll get to those. So liberty is necessary to the idea of universal morality. Notice how we've already excluded everything that would be considered an animal. We've only got to liberty. At this point in time, an animal can be excluded from morality, even ethics, because they have no concept of these ideas, but also because this is what makes an animal outside of moral agency. They're not a moral agent, meaning that they're not accountable for right and wrong. Why? Because they don't have free will. They have a will, but it's confined to their character and their nature. They do respond either to their environment or in the situation they're in, or to their training, the way they've been trained. So to the extent that you think an animal has free will, it is a confined will. Humanity doesn't have that problem. So this brings us to equality. We're not talking about equality of outcome or even equality of talents or abilities. We're talking about equality of rights. Do you have an equal right to your free will as to anybody else, to every other human or moral agent? This is not a necessary part of ethics. If you don't have free will or you don't have rights, then there's no necessary that you're equal in this system. But under our system of morality, it would be necessary that you are equal in these things. So if we all have free will and we have a right to our free will, and that gives us the liberty to exercise that free will equally, we all have equal rights and equal liberty. Now we have responsibility. Under the system of morality, responsibility is to not trample on the free will, rights, liberty, and equality of another moral agent. But if you do not have free will, rights, liberty, and equality, now you're back under ethics. It is not necessary that a system of ethics has personal responsibility. It's not a necessity. It's not logically necessary. Again, accountability. Under a system of ethics, not necessary. It's not a logical necessity. This is why some people get away with breaking the law and others don't. Oh, well, that guy's poor, or that guy's a different skin color, or whatever. And we make excuses for them based on that system. And then we turn around and we apply a different system. We apply ethics to one person based on whatever arbitrary needs we give them. And then we apply morality to another. In the same society, under the same system of laws, which means it's not a legal system. It's an ethical system. Under morality, you are accountable. You're accountable to yourself. You're accountable to everybody in your life. You're accountable to your community, to your society, to your state, to your government, to your nation. There's all sorts of accountability, and ultimately to your creator. So accountability is necessary to morality. So if you have all these rights and they're equal and you have a responsibility and you're held accountable, that's duty. That's where you derive duty from. Well, if none of those things necessarily exist under a system of ethics, then you do not have a duty under it, a necessary duty under ethics. But because those things do exist under our system of universal morality, you have a duty. A duty is necessary to our system of morality. Self-defense. You don't have rights. So under a system of ethics, self-defense literally has no meaning. You cannot defend something that you do not own or do not possess. And you do not have a duty to defend it either. So you don't have a responsibility. Now, under a system of morality, you have a duty to self-defend, to defend yourself, your family, your society, community, your nation, your state, etc., even each other. Now, here's where evil comes into play. If all we have is a system of ethics, then you do not have evil. There's no such thing as evil under just a system of ethics. It's might makes right, and you have no system by which to object. You have no objective standard. You're into a case of moral relativism. So whichever person can out-argue or out-beat you into the ground and make you submit, that's the one who gets to say what isn't right. And if that's the one saying what isn't right, there's no evil. Unless, of course, the one who's going to beat you into the ground declares it evil, in which case it's not evil by definition. It's just right and wrong according to whoever's ruling you, to the mob boss at the time, the tyrant. But under morality, evil necessarily exists. And evil would then be defined as anything outside of the natural order of the way this world's supposed to work, our natural order. And the way I see it, and the way I've explained it, if you're religious, revealed law and natural law are actually the same things. You go to Romans 1 and 2, especially 2, Romans 2, there's a natural law born into every moral agent, whether you are within Yahweh's kingdom or not. So if you're a Gentile, that law is still born into you. So where you go outside of that law, where you act in opposition to your duty to other people and their equal rights, when you oppose that, when you trample on it, that's evil by our definition here. So now the individual is foremost and center under our system of morality, not necessarily under ethics. So the ethics, a system of ethics, can recognize the collective over the individual. Our system of morality can never do that, because the rights don't reside in the community or in the collective. It's just it's a social construct. It's something we make up to discuss things and to conceptualize ideas and play mental gymnastics with thoughts and concepts and ideas and stuff. It's just a linguistic tool. It's a logic tool, think piece, but it doesn't exist in reality. And this brings us to shame and honor. If you have a system of ethics where none of these things actually exist, they're not a necessary part of your system, there can be no shame and honor. You're just doing what you're told or what you can get away with or whatever. There's no sense of right or wrong or accountability, so there's no shame and honor. But under our system of morality, shame and honor are central. Shame is the person who does evil. Honor is to the one who is virtuous and moral and does what their duty demands for them to do. We've gotten away from this in our society. And the reason we have no shame and honor anymore, it's because we gave up morality, universal morality, in favor of ethics. And we're now under a system of might makes right. Might of whatever way you can force your will on another. And that's the system we work under now. And this has confused our society so very, very much. So let me, just for the remainder of this half hour, let me go over a few things for you. I want you to look at how, if we accept universal morality the way I've derived it over the last few weeks, it's consistent and it's coherent. It's uniformed, which makes it a basis, an objective standard by which we can dispense justice. So let's look at welfare. By definition, welfare is taking from one and giving to another. It's wealth redistribution. Under our system of morality, that's theft. It's theft. Now, charity would not be theft, because if you force one to work for another against their will, it's theft. But charity, that's being a responsible neighbor. Remember, you have a duty to others. Your duty is not to provide them everything they want. Your duty would be to provide them what they need. They don't need a house. You do not need a house to survive in the state of nature. You do need shelter. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean a house. If I give you a tent or a shelter half, something heavy that you can sleep under to keep the rain off of you and keep the cold out, that's all you need to survive, that and clothing. You're going to need food, minimal health care standards. I'm not required to cure your cancer, but I am required to help you deal with it as you suffer through the disease. I know it sounds harsh, but to remember, state of nature. If you're on an island all by yourself and you get cancer and you can't cure yourself by the way you eat and exercise, there's nobody there that's going to stop you. That's just that's the way the world works. You've got a disease. It's going to kill you. Just like if a meteor falls out of the sky and whacks you on the head and pummels you into the ground and kills you, you can't claim a right to a meteor shelter. It's not the way it works. Part of this is the duty to accept the world the way it works. It's a fallen world, so there is evil in the world. People die. But I have I have no responsibility to stop people from dying. I do have a responsibility to do what I can to help you maintain your life. We've already derived that. So we've just dealt with welfare and charity. They're two different things. Progressive taxation, where I tax the rich more than the poor. If I do not apply an equal standard to everybody in society, then this is theft. Now, a progressive taxation will work if somebody so-and-so has to pay this percent. If you make this much, you pay that percent, blah, blah, blah. That would kind of sort of work if it's the same percentage for everybody. But if the poor person pays nothing and the rich man pays 50%, that's theft. If you want to do it correctly, you have to have a system of equal support. That's how a responsible citizen would do it. So then what you do is the same percentage to the poor man as to the rich, and you do not give them a deductible. If you give the poor man a 10% tax, but you let everybody deduct the first $50,000 they make, that poor man may never, or woman may never pay a single penny into the taxation. That's not fair to the person who's paying the 10% because they made $51,000. Now they have to pay 10%. So they end up bringing home less than the person that didn't pay anything because you just took, $4,000, $5,000 from them. A progressive taxation is theft, but an equal tax according to a set standard that applies to everybody that you cannot get out of. That's how a responsible citizenship works. The government is supposed to serve all, so you should be expected to support it. Everybody. Government health care. Again, under our system of morality, that should be seen as theft or slavery or both. You're forcing somebody to work for the benefit of another. Well, Joe, not really. They're getting paid. No, they're not. Not necessarily. They have to get paid what you tell them they're going to make. Medicare, Medicaid, they tell the doctors how much is going to be paid. And you can't necessarily collect blood from a turnip. And the law is written such that if the doctor wants $1,000 to do it, Medicaid's only going to pay $200. Well, you can't get that other $800 from a poor person who doesn't have the money. But the law says you got to take care of them anyway. That's indentured servitude. That's theft. It's slavery. Now, under our system of morality, this would fall under charity. If you are a doctor or a healthcare provider and you know of somebody who is in need of medical assistance and you know that they can't pay you, you still have a moral obligation under system of morality. You have a duty to sustain that life. Now, you don't necessarily have a duty to go above and beyond, but you do have a duty to help that person, at least minimally, so that they're not going to die from it right away. Stop the bleeding, start the breathing, but that doesn't necessarily mean cure your chronic disease that treat you for obesity or whatever. It sounds harsh, but so's the state of nature, folks. Under my system of morality, I did not define nirvana. I defined a system of moral ethics, well, not ethics, moral code, moral laws, moral principles by which we guide ourselves through society so as to be as just to the Creator, to ourselves, to our families, and to the people we have, and to others, responsibility to our community and whatever, as just as possible in an even way. Yes, we live in a fallen world, Natasha. So let's look at minimum wage. First of all, you have to remember minimum wage is a product of eugenics. It was originally established to help starve out the non-desirables because it was assumed that if you're a non-desirable with no talents or skills, you're not going to be worth a minimum wage, so the employer won't hire you. But if I have a minimum wage, that's a trespass on my right to contract. We covered this last week. I have a right to contract with my employer, or I have a right to contract with my employee. So long as a wage is fairly negotiated and agreed upon between an employer and employee, that's a free will contract. And by the way, the minimum wage is $0. It's not $3 or $4 or $5 or whatever dollars. The minimum wage is actually $0. This is a concept that's just been so convoluted. And the reason we can't do things the way we used to, you paperboy, people bringing milk to your house, you don't have an elevator operator, you don't have somebody there to check your oil and put air in your tires, because you've taken away the right to contract. A lot of these people used to be college and high school students. And this is where the youth started to learn their work ethic by working for, 50 cents, a dollar, tips, whatever. It was very low money, but it was never intended to support that person or a family. It was meant for spending money, tuition money, whatever, buy a car. It was meant to teach you to work to earn the things you wanted and needed. We've done away with that. That's a detriment to society. Now let's go to hate laws under our system of morality. That's a trespass. I have free will. If I don't want to like somebody, that's my right. You do not have the authority to pass a law that says I can't have hate speech or I can't hate this person for their color or their religion. Can't do that. So you have to have free speech in society. You have to tolerate it. That's the duty of a citizen. That doesn't mean actions. It means words or personal choices. I have the right to be a bigot. I have the right to say whatever I want. If I want to express, racist comments, that's fine. That's mine. Anti-Semitic, as long as you are not acting on it. Yes, sir?
But what if I say, I kill you?
Well, the moment you act on it, that changes. Now, if you turn around and say, everybody kill him, because now it's not free speech. Now you are advocating
Now you're inciting a riot. Or inciting,
yes.
Yeah.
You're advocating action. When you cross from the word to a deed, and words can be part of a deed, an impetus to a deed, then you are no longer protected by natural law or the system of morality. So burning your flag is not symbolic speech. When you had to put that adjective in front of it, symbolic, it was no longer speech. And if you have to adject it, put an adjective on it, you've already told me that it's not speech. So it's not protected. Our system works for these things. How about anti-bigotry laws? No racism laws. Again, that's a trespass on my free will to fellowship. A free will of association. I can choose that's like saying, I'm going to pass a law that you have to marry the first person that asks you to marry them. You may not think that this is the same. Well, Joe, this is different. I'm saying that you have to treat somebody of a different race the same way. So you got to rent to the person who's pink and purple polka dotted. Well, I don't want to rent to pink and purple polka dotters. Well, too bad. The law says you can't discriminate. Okay. Well, I've got a one-eyed, one-horned, flying purple people leader that's 3 different sexes came up to me and says, I demand you marry me. I'm going to pass a law that says, Joe, you got to marry them. Well, no, I don't love them. Too bad. It's the same thing. They're different flavors of the same ice cream. No, Joe, they're totally different. It's freedom of association. If I don't want to associate with pink and purple polka dotted people, but you're going to make me do so, then why do you not have a right to make me marry whoever wants to marry me? Or where do I not have a right not to engage in carnal relations with the person who wants to have carnal relations with me? Where do I get to say no to that? It's the same concept. It doesn't change just because we're dealing with ethnicity. It's the concept. And under ethics, you can get away with that stuff because ethics doesn't have to be consistent. Universal morality must be, by definition. Consistency is a necessary part of our system. So anti-bigotry laws it's all bad. It's all a violation of the system of morality. Affirmative action. That's a trespass on my rights to contract, my right to association. Reparations. That's definitely a trespass. That's holding me guilty for something I didn't do. It's the sins of the past. That's a violation of morality. Mandatory education. Again, mandatory education, that's a definite violation of my free will. It's also a violation of the duty of the parents. The parents have a duty to educate their child, but not to necessarily send them to a government school. And making me pay for government schools that my children, I might not even have children. That's unequal taxation for, that. No. Well, Joe, you're actually supporting the community. No, it's not the way a commonwealth is supposed to work under this system we've derived. If it doesn't benefit everybody, well, it does, Joe. Everybody learns how to read. That's not equal benefit to me. You can function perfectly in society with no harm to me whatsoever and not know how to read. Hundreds of thousands of people have done it throughout history. So no, that argument is a perversion of the logic that based our, that's ethics, not morality. We're trying to devise a system of morality and see how it helps us answer these questions. This is why I can blaze through these things that people throw me. It's not because I've decided each individual case what I'm going to think on it. It's because I've devised a system that tells me what I'm going to think about each individual case. Some of them are a little harder than others, yes, but okay, property taxes. You have a duty as a citizen to pay those property taxes. Well, Joe, those are what's paying your school system. No. That the government has no authority to spend that money on the school system, but it does have authority to spend my property taxes on a system of courts that protect my ability to treat the property as my own. That's what you're paying for. You're paying for the system that allows you to treat that piece of the earth as your personal, portable, private property. You're upholding the system that allows you to do that. Without government, you can't claim that unless, of course, you can defend it. Well, if you've got something that somebody else wants and you're only one person and they're a gang, they're going to get it. And you have nothing other than yourself and your friends and family by which to rectify the situation because you don't want to support the government that would do that for you. If you don't want to live in a civilized society, don't pay your taxes. Regulatory codes and licensings, that's paying to live or paying to tell me how to, I got to pay to support a system that tells me how to run my, no. That's a violation. Well, Joe, that if you let them do that, people will cheat and steal and folks are going to get hurt and cheated. And that happens anyhow, even under the regular, you haven't changed anything. You've just you've provided a system whereby government can control you. No, you pay your taxes to set up a system of courts so that when somebody does cheat me or was doing a job and they were incompetent and I didn't do my due diligence to check on you before I hired you, now I can sue you. So if you want to rectify this type of injustice, make it easier for the victim to sue and be made whole again in court. Not harder, easier. One of the ways you do that is getting rid of the bar system. It's another way of barring the door to who can practice law. Well, Joe, lawyers need to know. They don't. Lawyers don't need to know anything more than the basic principles of the common law. You and I should be able to practice law in the court. If it has gotten so complicated that we cannot do so, then you need to fix the system. It's the system broken, not the principles underneath what I'm espousing. Bottom of the hour break. We got a 3-minute break. We'll come back. I'm going to pick up with some more of this. There's a whole bunch more of this. I want to show you how this works. One simple, coherent system of morality will tell us how to live justly with each other. See you in 3 minutes. All right, we're back. Let's just keep going here. We left off with regulatory codes and things like that. Let's look at another one. As the law is written, Social Security, that's a violation of natural law. It's theft. As the way the law, no, Joe, I paid into it. It's mine. You haven't read the law, have you? I did. 1993, excuse me. First year of college at FSU. I got into that and I went and I read the Social Security Act of 35 and the update 37. So that law has never been amended. You and I are not guaranteed one penny of it. Not one penny. That's why when you die, that money does not come back to your heirs. It's a tax. That's all it is. It's a Ponzi scheme. It's a violation of morality, the moral code, the natural law, natural rights, as it's written. Let's look at another hot button issue, abortion. When abortion is used to legitimately save the life of the mother, as in the here and now, she has preeclampsia. And if we don't treat her, she's going to die and so will the baby. That's a legitimate choice should the mother decide to choose it. That's the right of self-defense. You're defending yourself against the claim of another individual. This is very rare. The system talks about it as though it happens all the time. It's less than a fraction of a percent. It is very rare. I've looked into it. Abortion in this country is primarily used as a form of birth control. That's murder. That's murder. Remember, our system of morality has a duty. You have free will to have sexual relations, but you're taking on the responsibility for your actions. And if you create another human being in the process of exercising your free will, you are responsible for that life. You now have a duty to protect it. It was your action. Under ethics, we just kill the baby and call it the removal of a parasitic lump of flesh. No, renaming it doesn't change what it is. Under ethics, yeah, because you don't have a right to your life. Under our system of morality, natural law, natural rights derived from, this is murder. Plain and simple. Corporations, living wills and trusts. And by living wills, I don't mean advanced directives. I mean a will that goes on past your death, like a trust. These are artificial entities. And they're property of the government and of the people. What do I mean by that? Corporations, trusts, living wills do not exist in the natural world. They're artificial constructs. They were created by acts of law. That means they reside with the government. And the government, in a republic, a free Commonwealth republic, as we were supposed to be, that means that ultimately these things reside with the people. So they are not private property and should never be treated as strictly private property like you and I. If we own our own business, we're a sole proprietor. That's our property. If I don't want to sell my cake to you, that's my business. If I do it enough, nobody comes, I go out of business, that's my problem. I should not be free from the consequences of my actions, but I should be free to choose who I contract with, who I associate with. You should not be allowed to tell me that. So if I have a corporation, that's different. Because the corporation is not private in the same sense as my sole proprietorship, I can build my own house. Literally, I can go buy the materials, pay my taxes to buy a piece of property, keep paying the taxes to support my right to treat the property as mine, go buy the materials, build a little shop. I shouldn't have to build according to a building code. It's my shop. I should build it whatever way I want. Well, Joe, the insurance company can inspect it. And if they don't want to insure me because they don't like the way it's built, they don't insure me. Well, Joe, you have to have insurance. No, I don't. As long as you hold me responsible for whatever happens on my property, I don't have to have insurance. As long as I'm willing to pay when I get sued or become an indentured servant because I couldn't make somebody right for something I actually did or neglected to do. The system will resolve all of this stuff. So I build my business and I sell to who I want, according to however I want. If I want to charge you $5 for a cake and I don't like the way somebody else in the class looks and I charge them $10 for the same cake, hey, they're willing to give me the $10. Knock ourselves out. But as soon as you have a corporation, that corporation's entire existence depends on the people's laws. So the people can tell that corporation, you will operate your business this way, period. End of story. Now, the people should still not treat that corporation special, pay the same taxes that it would as you're giving it artificial personhood, so treat it as a person. But you can set up different standards for that personhood. And then when it comes to trusts and living wills, you're letting artificial or dead people dictate to the living. You cannot do that. That's not a ethical or moral system. Well, it's ethical. It's just not moral. It's not a natural law, natural rights way of operating. So if I have, like when Ted Turner dies and he's going to put half the state of Wyoming in a living trust, he just took that land and deeded it to himself even in his death in perpetuity. He said, well, Joe, it's a nature preserve. No, it's a dead man setting up a system because he became so rich because of the people. The people created a system for him that he acquired enough wealth that it can support itself in perpetuity. So that land can't be used by anybody else. A dead man now owns it. That's a violation of natural law, natural rights, and a moral code. He's dead. Well, Joe, he set up enough money to pay for whatever it is you wanted done. I don't care. He's dead. His will has no force in this world anymore. And the legal system should not allow it. It's a violation of the moral code and the natural law and natural rights as we set it up. Now, what about the death penalty? Well, under a Commonwealth system that's set up representative according to the moral code that we've done, you give your right of self-defense to the state. You lend them your authority to defend yourself and to seek retribution against those who have harmed you. So if there is murder, the state has a duty to take that person and execute them, not put them in jail forever. If you can prove beyond all reasonable doubt, high level, now there's a high bar for this. I'm going to give you that. If you can prove it, execute that person the first time and don't give them 10, 15, 20 years of appeals. That's justice delayed is justice denied. Let them have an appeal. Look at it hard. There's a whole bunch of minutia we could get into here, but that person should be executed. If the state does not do this, then the right to do so comes back to the family. And if they want to go, that's the ancient, what's the term for that, Charlie? The blood avenger of blood.
Yeah, Avenger of Blood. Yeah, I think it's
okay. That goes way back. That's in every culture that I can remember. And you're lending that authority to the state. And if the state refuses to do its job, that falls back on the family. So if the family goes and kills the murderer, the state has no authority to do anything about that. It conceded that duty back to the individual. So they went and executed the right of self-defense. You have to leave that person alone. Just like if somebody barges into your house and you shoot them, the police were not there. You have the right to protect yourself and your property. You have no duty to withdraw from the property. You pay your taxes to treat it as your private property. It is essentially an extension of your life. If you are not doing anything wrong and that person invades your property, you have the right of self-defense right then and there. And the state has nothing under this system of morality, natural law, natural rights, has no authority whatsoever to come back and put me in jail for shooting that person. He violated the social contract, or she. They proved themselves lawless. Now, let's say they rob me when I'm not home. I have given my authority to go make amends on that to the state. So the state needs to go find that person and punish them. I don't want them thrown in jail. I want them to make me whole. If it was just a physical property loss, I want my money restored. And in this case, I don't want one of these, well, it was old, so it's already worth $20. So I say, yeah, but it costs $500 to replace. Well, it's an indemnification. That's not the way you replace property. You're going to have to replace it with new. You need to replace what you destroyed, not the value it is now, especially since it might have sentimental value. Now, if the person doesn't have the money to pay me back, then I want them declared to be an indentured servant. It's restitution. You don't need to put them in jail. Make them make good on what they did. Now, if they refuse to make good, then you put them in jail. Not for a certain period of time. You put them in jail until such time as they can make good on their debt. Well, Joe, what if nobody pays the debt for them? They got no way to make money in jail. Sucks to be them. They're going to be there the rest of their life. You're going to put somebody in jail for stealing a Nintendo for the rest of their life? Yep. Beats the heck out of me coming and killing you for it. Under natural law and moral, this is moral. Yes, this is moral. It is. I'll say, Joe, it's wrong to kill somebody for stealing your Nintendo. Technically, no. Equal rights. There's no order of law there. What you have now is duty to the creator to preserve life. It's up to you individually to determine this now. This is one of the reasons we go into civil societies. So we don't have a bunch of people coming around saying, well, I forgive you, and another bunch of people going around wanting to kill you because you stole a candy bar. That actually works. But under a civil society, we say, okay, we'll let the state meter that out. That you can do. That's the right to contract. That's the whole basis of the social contract. But if the state ever renounces its role, refuses to do its duty, like the government, the Supreme Court has said the police has no duty to protect your life or property. Wrong answer, Jack. You just said that the police no longer have the right of the sword. You've ceded the sword. Well, we don't need law enforcement anymore then. We don't need them anymore. Get rid of them. They've just become irrelevant with the whim of a judge. Technically, what you do is you get rid of that judge because they're no longer a judge. Comment on the board from Natasha says, how do we separate that from premeditated murder in today's society? It doesn't matter. Murder's murder. Remember, manslaughter and murder are two different things. So law enforcement, they do have a duty under this system to protect you to the best of their ability, your life and your property. So that means if they're looting, people are looting, the police have a duty to protect your property, even if it means shooting the looters. And you shoot to kill. You always shoot to kill. Joe, you're going to kill people for looting? Yes, I am. They're lawless. They've decided that they no longer want to be part of a civil society. They've entered into the state of nature. You're going to steal my property. I have a right to defend it. Now, if it's a corporation that's being looted, the people might say, hey, corporations have no right to defend their property. That's fine. But if it's a mom and pop store and it belongs to them, they got a right to shoot you. They do. How about the military? The state has a duty to protect borders. The nation has a duty to protect borders, to protect ourselves. If the military is not going to do its job, if law enforcement is not going to do its job, it falls back down to the people. And then under this system, tyranny is going to be defined as nihilism. Anytime the state operates in a manner that is destructive to our rights, our lives, our property, our free will, then it is no longer defending these things. It has lost its legitimacy, and you now have a right to object to the rule of the state because it has violated that contract, that social contract, the right to contract. And once that happens, the right of self-defense devolves back down to the people. This is exactly what the Declaration of Independence is. The right of self-defense had devolved back to the colonies because the king had violated his charter repeatedly. And he had allowed Parliament to dissolve the charters or to declare them null and void. They had rights in those charters. And it was with the king. The Parliament had absolutely no authority in there whatsoever. It's like the judges now saying Trump has to use the discretionary funds to fund the SNAP benefits. The judge has absolutely zero authority in there. That was already pre-established law that's discretionary funds. Trump can use it to build the wing on the east wing of the addition of the White House if that's what he wants to do. It's at the discretion of the executive. This is all lawlessness that we're seeing right now. All of it. So how about the 10 Commandments? Honor your parents. Folks, that's a duty to society and to your parents and to yourself. But you know what that means? It means I'm going to make sure that because my parents gave me birth and took care of me, even if they were bad parents, I'm going to take care of them in their old age. I'm not going to place them as a burden on society. I have a duty to my family. The family is the basic building unit of community and society. You have a duty to it, a responsibility to your extended family. Somebody's born with a birth defect. You don't just shove them off onto the whole of the population. You take care of them. Sucks. That's life. Okay, but your family. We've lost this in this country. We've lost this in the whole world. But it also deals with the family unit and rights of inheritance. The rights of inheritance used to be important. It's how you provided for each other so that you could support each other. But we're more worried about making sure we have the newest cell phone, the newest Nintendo, and the greatest, set of kicks on our feet, rather than saving money for the duties that we have. We're chasing wants, not needs. We're not supposed to murder. That doesn't mean do not kill. It doesn't say that in your Bible. It says do not do murder. Murder is an unjust homicide. If you've killed somebody and the revenger of blood comes and kills you, that's not murder. It's not even manslaughter. It's a justified execution. Now, in this country, we want to have trials to make sure we don't mistakenly kill the wrong person. You will not steal, because that is a claim against the other person's life, ultimately. So that flows from the uniform moral law. You will not commit adultery. Adultery, although our society thinks it's a crime without consequence, it's destructive of the family unit, which is then destructive to the children you're raising and to the inheritance laws, and ultimately also to society. So where you think adultery is a victimless crime, the entire community in which you live is a victim of your actions, your selfishness over your duty. That's what adultery is. So you're not supposed to covet your neighbor's wife, your neighbor's goods, his house. Covetousness leads to action. These are basically commandments to guard your will, train your will, discipline your will, so that you will be a moral and righteous citizen within the community. This is how you deal with your fellow man. One of the ways you deal with your duty to the Creator is to serve him. The best way to serve him is to serve each other. I got that from Ben Franklin, the deist who believes he's going to be judged by God in the afterlife. And how do you serve your fellow man? It starts with your spouse, then to your children and your parents, then to your congregation, your community, your state, your city, state, nation. All of this is service to each other. You earn your living by providing service. I sell a product in my business, but whenever my customers contact me, I don't say, what can I get for you? I ask them, how can I serve you? Because that's what I see myself as doing. I'm serving them. Even though it's a hobby, it doesn't matter. I constantly remind myself that my income is derived by how well I serve my fellow man. This is what was known as the Protestant work ethic. As long as free market operates according to this system, and this is the free market, serving others, that's how you earn your money. Things function much better than they do under a capitalist system that's been designed to be manipulated by those with money. Capitalism is not the free market. We covered this already. Greed, lust, covetousness, envy, licentiousness. All of this is evil. Once these things enter your heart, they eventually enter into your actions and your deeds. That's evil. These are all the roots of evil, the source of evil, because they will cause you to operate outside of the universal moral code. And once you're operating outside the universal moral code, you are trampling on somebody's natural rights. And that's a violation of natural law. And that is the definition of evil. You're also, at the same time, violating the moral revealed code, the 10 Commandments. And I just showed you how the 10 Commandments are hand in hand with the natural law. They go hand in hand. One of them was spoken to us by the Creator himself. The other is born into you as part of being a moral agent. Even if the Creator doesn't talk to you, you've never read his revealed word or the written words of the scripture, you still know the 10 commandments. We got to them simply from I think, therefore I am. So you are without excuse. Exactly like Paul said. Now, if anybody would take it upon themselves to refute me in all of this the last 6 weeks, now that's a discussion I'd be happy to have, as long as it's being held within the context of how I'm deriving this. Yes,
but
sir.
you didn't derive the first couple of commandments. You did all the ones about fellow man, but what about, serving God and
Well,
only
first of all,
serving
I
him
have
and not
derived
making
that
idols?
there must be a creator, because without a creator, there's no such thing as morality, no such thing as rights, no such thing as free will. So I know there's a creator. And if there's a creator, I have an obligation and a duty to him. That's worship. Him and him alone. Occam's razor tells me one creator, not many. Because if there were many, I would expect nothing but chaos in the world rather than order. People who look and see only chaos and not order have not looked close enough. There's order even within the chaos. There's a natural law that enforces itself even over the chaos. So I know that there's a creator who's ruling from on high. And if there is a creator, and if I owe him, then I got to worship him, pay him homage, and that's my duty and responsibility to him, and to preserve that which he has created, and him alone, no other gods. And I also have a duty to serve him in the best way I can know to serve the creator is to serve and protect his fellow creation, my fellow, his other creations, which is not just him. It's to serve each of us as well as be a good steward over the planet because he created that as well. So you won't get to the first 3 commandments from logic, but you will cover the spirit of the first 3 commandments. Or do you disagree?
No. I just wanted to throw that out there and see how I need to be able to tackle it. But so the only one we haven't covered is the one that's the seal. But anyway, that's
because it's not a commandment.
Probably another show.
That's revealed law. You can't get to the seal through logic and natural law.
Right.
You can't. But that's revealed law.
Yep.
Now, you can get to the seal a different way through natural law. If I deduce that I do have a creator, well, then he created me for a purpose. And he must love me. Because look, he's provided me with this entire universe and he's put me in dominion over it. Now, I'm a fallen being. I'm not perfect. I'm going to assume the creator is, or at least he's more perfect than me. So from my position, he's perfect. I can't perfect myself. I cannot save myself. I violate his laws. The price for violation of a law is death in this world. So I deserve death. But my creator made me. He's not going to make me just to die. That serves no purpose even to himself. So my creator must care for me. Maybe love me. Well, if he cares for me in any way, shape, or form, he's going to provide some means of restoring me or rescuing me or snatching me out of the jaws of death. Now, would he do that for just everybody? Or is there going to be just those who recognize him? That's up to you to decide if you want to be a universalist. But I'm going to say that the creator is not going to bother to try and save somebody who hates him. Only those who love him. So if he is going to provide a means of restoring me back to life, he's going to redeem me. And he must be a living redeemer in order to do this. This is ancient, very ancient understandings right now. Primordial man. So if my redeemer is going to redeem me and make me whole again because he loves me, cares about me, my redeemer lives. If I'm going to be brought back to life, I'm going to see my redeemer in the flesh with my own eyes. Then I'm going to trust him to do just that. Charlie, do you see where I just put the seal over my thinking and logic?
Yeah.
Do you know what book I was just summarizing?
Well, it's pretty much the book of Genesis. No? What book?
My Redeemer Lives.
Oh.
That phrase should take you right to the book I'm thinking.
Oh, Job?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's exactly where Job gets all of this from. So if
Yeah.
you're going to trust wholly in your Redeemer, knowing that that's your creator, you're sealed. You're sealed because the Sabbath is just the sign of the seal.
Right.
So I got there, just not the way that most people would expect me to. That's why I believe. By the way, folks, over the last 6 weeks, I just gave you my defense for my faith. And I never once talked about Jesus. Didn't have to. I was talking about him the whole time because he's the Logos, the Word. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about covenants if you join us for Worship Wednesday. Thursday, I'm going to prime you for a study in the Declaration of Independence. I'm going to start focusing on what this blog page and show, The Road to Concord, was always intended to be for my sake as well as others. I have a lot of work to do, so Thursday will just be a primer. I'm catching up on things that I had read decades ago, and some of it I had actually forgotten. Oh my gosh, is it going to be eye-opening for a great many of you. And then Friday, we will go over the next 2 chapters in our book study on The Unseen Realm by Dr. Michael Heiser. So that's the plan for the rest of the week. And we will leave you with that. We love you. We thank you for being here. Please, if you don't mind, if you like what we're doing, at the very least, hit the thumbs up buttons. If you're on YouTube, smack the bell for us, please. Helps the show. Share the show directly if you don't mind. That's the only way we get to other people. For the very first time, I've been at it now for 4 going on 5 years, somewhere in that neighborhood. The very first time this week, I saw our show come up on my Facebook feed. For the very first time, I saw both shows come up. I would have thought that we've got a big enough footprint and presence by now that I would have seen it a little more often, given how the algorithms feed you things that it knows that you're going to want to watch and see. So we know we're being throttled. It's up to you to help us spread the word. You may not want to. That's fine. I get it. I understand. But the only way the show survives is the only way the show succeeds in its mission is if we reach more people willing to spend just a part of the time thinking about the topics we're covering here that they do on Facebook, sports, idle entertainment. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't often do this, but history tells me that when a region or nations get to the place where we are now in this country, only 2 things can save it. One of 2 things. A great shaking, like a war or a famine or a plague. And I mean something that wipes out hundreds of thousands of people and crushes the society so that it has to rebuild out of the ashes. The only other thing that saves it is being wiped clean down to the remnant and then rebuilt. The United States changed in World War II because of the war, and not necessarily in a good way. We were a better country before World War II. But in a lot of ways, we had to rebuild our thinking after World War II. Japan was wiped to the foundations. We destroyed that country. And they had to rebuild out of the ashes like a phoenix. In a lot of ways, Japan today represents the greatness of what America was before the war. And we've swapped places and become a bit of a tyrannical empire, much like Japan was under the Code of Bushido. If we do not find a way to recapture the Judeo-Christian ethic upon which liberty, the liberty of man, individual rights and liberties, is founded, there's only one thing saves the world, because we're not regional now. This is a global problem. You either have to have a plague the likes of which wipes out large portions of humanity, which is probably one of the reasons why the Depop crowd is doing this. If they can depopulate us, they can rebuild us according to their God, not Yahweh, because that's what they'll do. They'll rebuild the world according to their pagan God. Or you're going to have to wipe us to the foundations, to the very core of the remnant. Now, since this is a biblical worldview show, I'm going to tell you right now, you're not going to succeed at rebuilding on another God, because there is no other El Elyon other than Yahweh. So what I'm starting to see is, well, if you have ears to hear, then you'll understand. Keep your eyes on the eastern sky. And make sure you're found busy doing your master's work when that sky rips open. Shalom. See you next time.